You are watching the New American Media.
You are listening to the New American Media.
And we're back. As I just said, if you're listening live, and I just said it twice, that only took a few seconds. But if you're listening after the fact, thank you very much for hopefully checking out Strictly Browns with Zak Baris. He's joining us on Strictly Browns and the Unhappy Hour. We're going to expand in the sporting world a little bit on the Unhappy Hour. Please do us a favor. If you're not following us on Twitter, we're at American_media_. Join our 50,000 or so buddies over there. We'd appreciate it. Search the New American Media on Facebook and like the page. Leave some comments. We appreciate that. And youtube.com/The New American Media. By the way, our homepage, thenewamericanmedia.com. Check it out. There's good stuff over there. Pretty soon I think we're going to be posting. I had the opportunity to talk with John B. Wells on Coast to Coast AM, I don't know, in front of 5 million people globally back on December 22nd. So I think we're going to be posting a link to that. Good times. There's a whole bunch of archived videos and interviews and radio shows. So do us a favor. Swing by all of our various outlets and check it out. And like we said, be sure you're following Zak Baris. He's at ZBARIS, Z Baris on Twitter. Zak, welcome back, and thanks for sticking around with us. We are going to transition away from the Cleveland-centric phase of what we do here and just kind of talk a little bit more nationally. We have 3 huge kind of... one is one of the weirdest stories I've ever heard. One is a story where it's kind of like, yeah, we all knew that was what it was. And then the third one is kind of, well, if it happens, it happens. We have LeBron, we have Manti Te'o, and we have Lance Armstrong. I'll leave it up to you. Dealer's choice. Where do you want to start?
I'm willing to start wherever you want to. It doesn't matter to me. If we're going to hit all 3 subjects anyways, it doesn't matter.
All right, well, I'll tell you what. If you listen to these shows back-to-back, we were just kind of tossing out the concept of what NBA scouts or, might have seen in LeBron James, or if NFL scouts might have said, hey, LeBron could play football. He played in high school. He could do this. And they actually had a commercial where LeBron was wearing a Cleveland Browns jersey back in the day. So I'll tell you what, let's pick it up there. We'll go to Lance Armstrong and save the weirdest story for last, the Manti Te'o thing. So LeBron James, it's a topic that really used to eat at me. It really used to upset me, kind of let me down, really disappointed me, such as any relationship can. And that's the danger and the joy of relationships. You invest yourself and you hope for good things, and sometimes everything falls to crap. But you and I have talked many times about LeBron James, his decision to go to Miami, to quit on Cleveland. I talked to a friend. They're going to the Great Lakes Brewing Company where they had the Quitness beer. It was like the most bitter pale ale. It leaves a horrible taste in your mouth. And that's really what happened for all Cleveland sports fans, especially those of the Cavaliers when LeBron went to Miami. And you have maintained, you have been consistent throughout, that in your heart of hearts and in your brain of brain and connections of connections, you're just convinced that he's coming back to Cleveland and that it might be happening as soon as his first opt-out opportunity. So I'll open it up to you, kind of hit reset on why you've kind of reached this conclusion and why all of the recent talk over the past week or so with him hitting 20,000 points, why more people are now nationally saying he's coming back to Cleveland.
What did you say? I'm sorry. I couldn't hear you for a sec.
Just LeBron. Pick it up from what you know about it and why they're talking about it more today.
Basically, what I think. Okay, what's happening now is basically, obviously, I don't know why everyone's dwelling on this so much now. Why it's, why all this is coming to fruition right now. It just doesn't make sense. This was a year ago. When people were asking, this is starting up a year ago. Now we're 18 months away. And people are going, oh, he's coming back now. I've been saying that for a long, long time now. I've been on the show. You can hear me a year ago, a year and a half ago, even say that, I think he's coming back. It's at the point now where I believe that LeBron James will, it's not a guarantee that he's coming back, but I'm almost willing to fully guarantee that he will not be in Miami through the full length of his contract. Now, that doesn't mean he might have one opt-in year, but I highly doubt that. Free agency is always on LeBron's mind. He's always thinking about it. That's why I just cannot see him opting in to one of his years on his contract. Just not going to happen. And plus, Miami will be so far in the luxury tax at that point. I just can't see it playing out. So, I think the 3 teams that are going to show interest in LeBron or that LeBron will show interest in.
Yeah, that's probably the better way to say it, right?
The Cleveland Cavaliers, the Los Angeles Lakers, and the New York Knicks. Now, I think the Knicks are going to personally try to remove themselves from the LeBron thing because they can't risk losing Carmelo Anthony in free agency in 2 years to go out and try to sign LeBron, because if you fail to land either, you're essentially screwed.
Right.
You can't risk losing a superstar. So I think the Knicks will retain Carmelo.
Well, how close? Let me ask you this: how close are LeBron and Carmelo?
I think they're very close. I mean, I don't know.
Closer than Carmelo and KG.
I would assume so. I'm pretty sure LeBron and Melo are close friends.
Okay.
But, the one thing I could totally see LeBron doing, and the one thing which I don't know about LA is it's going to be hard to play in Kobe Bryant's shadow in Los Angeles. It will always be looming over LeBron.
I'm sure it was hard for Kobe to play in Magic Johnson's shadow. I'm sure it was hard for Magic to play in Kareem.
But don't forget when Kobe Bryant took over with the Lakers. They had been without Magic. The Lakers had not been a great team for about, I think it was, I don't know, maybe 5 years at that point. It had been a while since they were good. And don't forget, you don't hear the Kobe and Magic comparison. It's not happening like that. Kobe and LeBron have been consistently compared with each other since day one, since LeBron walked into this league.
And LeBron to MJ and Kobe to MJ.
Yeah, and that's what's always going to happen. I just can't see, I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but, if LeBron wants to make his own mark on the NBA, why to go to a team that's, that has 16, 17 titles, however many they have? Why is he going to go there? How's that making your mark on a team that's already won, numerous championships? And, that's not making your mark. Your mark would be going back to your hometown, winning a ring there, winning multiple rings there, playing alongside a young Kyrie Irving. Here's the reason why I believe he will go back to the Cavs. It's his hometown, win them a ring, total redemption story. It's great for his endorsements. Then you have to look at the roster that they have in place now. Yes, they have a lot of holes, but they have tons of cap room, tons. And, the only people that are going to be under contract in 2 years, I believe they have a team option on Anderson Varejao, Tyler Zeller, Tristan Thompson, Kyrie Irving, and Deion Waiters. Everyone else will be off the books. And don't forget, they're going to have a ridiculously high first rounder this year, which will probably be top 3 to top 5. So you're looking at you're looking at a high pick there. You're looking at another pick in the middle of the first round right now. That's what say the Lakers get the 8th seed in the West. You're looking at a pick around 17 or 18. Or if they miss it, then then you have the Heat pick in the late 20s. Unfortunately, but that's another 2 guys to fill out the roster right there. Then you can go out and if I were the Cavaliers next year, what I would do is I would attempt to trade some of the young assets you have for a big piece. Whether it's a Kevin Love type, because if you can lure Kevin Love to Cleveland, you're keeping Kevin Love in town. You're going to keep Kyrie Irving in town for a long time, and it gives you your safe. It gives you.
Could you imagine the injuries with?
Safety net.
Could you imagine?
Safety net.
Go ahead.
It gives you a safety net in case you fail to land LeBron, in case he has a change of heart, because you can't rely on LeBron.
No.
I mean,
no.
They've done it before. You can't sit there and bank, 4 years of the franchise of not having LeBron and then going, okay, we're getting him back now.
Yeah, but could you imagine the medical issues if you had Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving on the same team? They're like made of porcelain, both of them.
I mean, it's true. But still, like I said, the Cavaliers have the young assets to pull off the deal. They have a lot of picks, a lot of future picks.
A lot of money.
To pull off the deal, and an owner who's willing to spend.
So would you see Dan Gilbert issuing some sort of public proclamation in Comic Sans font apologizing for his reaction? Like, could you see it in the news like right now?
No, it's not going to happen. There's been private apologies, basically, and I think indirect apologies. I think that's where Rich Paul comes in to smooth things out.
Okay.
Because Dan Gilbert's not allowed to talk with LeBron. It's tampering. You're not allowed to do that. So I fully believe that that the relationship has been healed. I don't think there's so much animosity and hatred towards LeBron anymore from Dan's side. Obviously I'm sure there's still a little bit of I'm sure he's still a little I'm sure he's not thrilled. But like I said, if he gets LeBron back, time heals all wounds for the most part. Especially in sports. If he's willing to come back, we've seen it before. Don't forget how much the fans hated Jim Thome when he left. And suddenly the guy was a godsend when he came back to Cleveland. I was at his return game. I happened to be home in Cleveland. I was at his return game, and the fans couldn't have appreciated him anymore. They were standing up. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. So, it's stuff changes. So
hey, real quick sidebar. Major League Baseball, the Hall of Fame, nobody got voted in. With all the steroid era. Jim Thome has never necessarily been implicated, but you look at his rookie card versus, 15 years in the league, you're like, oh, man, dude's a behemoth, but he's never really been implicated.
Thome always had ridiculous power, though. I'm not going to go and say a guy took steroids when, I have no proof, and I'm not going to, Barry Bonds took roids, it's obvious. Roger Clemens probably did too, and it's different though. Jim Thome's never even been implicated in the steroid, area. His name's never been mentioned anywhere. I have no reason to believe he actually did, and until it comes out that he did, I'm going to believe that he did.
Right, and we're going to talk about Lance Armstrong coming up here in just a second, because it's clear now with his admissions what's been going on, despite all the denials. But I want to kind of go diagonal with this, because it just got me thinking just now with Major League Baseball not putting anyone in the Hall of Fame. Maybe at some point down the road they get an asterisk or something. But is steroids and HGH and different things, big thing in baseball. That there's problems in football, and they try to test certain ways there. Is there any talk behind the scenes about performance-enhancing drugs in the NBA? No one player in particular, but is there any talk about it?
No. I don't think the topic's ever even come up.
Why is that? Because there's some big boys in that league,
But the thing is, you don't need to be muscular to shoot a basketball.
You gotta be athletic to get,
Yeah, you just have to be athletic. You don't need to be complete. You don't need to be as big as possible. You don't need. It's not like you're sitting there hitting home runs or popping guys in the face. Like in football, or football or baseball. This is different. You're looking at guys. Guys like Steve Kerr have been able to compete in the NBA without taking roids. Smaller guys. Look at Nate Robinson on the Bulls. You don't have to be. You literally don't have to be the strongest to play in the NBA. Look at Chris Bosh. He's lanky. He's made his life out of being an all-star. Though.
But some people, he has special dinosaur strength. That's something a little different. But yeah. I'm just kidding. But I get what you're saying. But a lot of why people take it, different forms. There are many different reasons why people take different types of performance-enhancing drugs. A lot of people say it's to heal. A lot of people say it's to get the body back on track if you've had an injury, if you need to strengthen certain areas, and it's not so much about having huge biceps like Albert Bell pointing at his corked bat in his biceps, but it's some people say it's to heal. And Lance Armstrong, had his problems, his health issues, and some say that it was, partially to help get healed, and then, of course, he also said it's not cheating because that's a competitive advantage, and when everyone else is doing it, I'm just keeping up, so that's another topic on the side. But
if it's defined in the rule book as cheating, it's cheating.
Yeah, well, I get you. I don't mean to do the Bill Clinton. That depends on what your definition of the word is. I mean, that's ridiculous. But I'm just saying that some people use it so that they can get healthy, and in the NBA, people want to get healthy fast. That's all I was getting at.
Oh yeah, I mean, you do make a point, but the topic of steroids in the NBA just has never come up.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you don't hear too much about it in football. When Joe Hayden loses 5 games for Adderall, I mean, come on, man. If Adderall's the worst thing people are taking, really? But I don't know. Sorry, I just want to go off on that side tangent for a second. But back to LeBron. You're saying that it's possible he lands with the Knicks. It's possible that he goes with the Knicks. You're saying it's possible he could end up on the Lakers. But for both reasons, you don't think so.
But the most likely scenario... There's 2 likely scenarios right now, and I think the most likely is Cleveland. I think the Knicks are a third. You have to put them in that tertiary category. Is basically the third option, and you have your primary and your secondary market, and that's where I go and I look and see Cleveland as his primary market because it's his hometown. He loves Northeast Ohio, and I can see him coming back. He still makes his home there in the off season. And they have a lot of cap space. They can fill in the roster, like I said, around LeBron, and they can help piece together a roster finally tailored to fit LeBron with a lot of young players surrounding him that will eventually let him fade off into the distance. With guys like Irving, it'll allow LeBron not to, to be more of a spot-up shooter, at the end of his career rather than have to drive and dribble. You have guys like Waiters. Granted, I think Deion Waiters becomes expendable if you bring back LeBron. But at the same time, Deion Waiters could be a fantastic piece off the bench, which is what I eventually see him as. He's that guy who can put up big-time numbers off the bench. The other day, he put up 33.
Well, and that's what the Heat don't have. They don't have a bench. You know, they're having a hard time getting the right players in their starting five.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot depends on where the Cavs draft. Now, if the Cavaliers land the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft, who do you draft? Do you draft Nerlens Noel? Because I think a lot of it's going to come into play. I mean, don't forget, the Cavaliers, it's very obvious to see how their roster's constructed. They've neglected the small forward position now once again. You know, they don't have a true small forward. They don't have a true number 3 on the roster. You know,
that's right.
You know, and it's fairly obvious, you know, what they're trying to do. I mean, it's not that hard to figure out, you know, what their long-term goals are.
Well,
and there's a reason they spent any money in free agency or made any trades. You know, I was personally one last year that thought if the Cavaliers really wanted to make a splash, was go out there and trade for James Harden, which they should have done. You know, if I were the Cavaliers, I would have pulled off a Harden deal. I could only imagine Harden and Irving in the same backcourt together.
Well, they might have been talking. They might have been talking about it. Maybe just Houston gave them an offer they couldn't refuse. I don't know.
But, you know, if you look at it long-term, though, I think the Cavaliers have primed themselves to be in a very, very good position to sign LeBron James.
Well, I'll tell you what. Go ahead.
And also another reason why I believe, too, that, you know, he's coming back. I could have never seen it happening if Leon Rose was still his agent. You know, if he, you know, with CAA, I could have never seen the comeback happening because, you know, don't forget the Cavaliers have basically a personal vendetta against Leon, and he had one against the Cavs for what went down, you know, with LeBron basically, you know, saying that the Cavaliers took Tristan Thompson over Jonas Valanciunas because, you know, Jonas was represented by Leon and CAA. And the Cavaliers didn't want to go that route, yet Dan still had a good working relationship with Rich Paul. So I think that was why, you know, and now LeBron has Rich as his agent, who's very close with Dan. Rich is at almost every Cavs home game. You know, the pieces are just there. It's almost like a detective trying to place the clues together in order to solve a case. And,
okay,
you know, granted, LeBron is entirely unpredictable. Is from what I understand, is from people in his group, he did not tell them he was going to Miami until the day of. A lot of them were not 100% sure until the decision was made. You know, that was when a lot of his friends found out, is what I'm told. Wow. And so right now it's just a lot of people taking guesses. You know, it's like when Stephen Smith made his educated guess, you know, which got him a job back on ESPN, is when he said that, you know, LeBron, Wade, and Bosh would all be playing together. You know, he was out of work at the time. You know, he made a guess that no one else had made, and he was correct on it, and he was back in the job. You know, like I said, people always like to speculate. You know,
makes it fun. Makes for good radio, Zach. Makes for good radio. It makes for good radio.
It makes for it makes articles entertaining to read. You know, like I said, I like to read a lot of stuff on the internet. You know, I follow 600 people on Twitter. I like, you know, a lot of them being sports writers or front office people. You know, I like to read just to see what else is going on, to see, you know, just to get an idea of what's going on around the league. I've liked that, and I've always been fascinated by that. But
all right, well,
I still believe that LeBron will leave. You know, and it's hard for me to see Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh opting out of their contracts in 2 years because, you know, Dwayne Wade, I don't think will get a max deal with anyone else in 2 years. I think he's just aging quickly.
And so he has the opportunity to opt out, but they can't cancel him. It's not a mutual deal. Is that how it works?
No. Yes, it's a player option.
Oh, so he might stay forever if his value has dropped.
I believe that Wade will stay another 2 years just because, like I said, Miami's his adopted hometown. You know, he's been there since he's been in the league. You know, I see it tough for Wade leaving. You know, I could always see him going to Chicago. You know, if he chooses not to go to the Heat, you know, I could always see him being a Chicago Bull in 2 years. You know, it's something that I've seen for a while. You know, if he chooses not to go back to the Heat, I think that's the one team he would leave the Miami Heat for. And then you look at Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh is not a max player by any means anymore.
No.
You know, I think, you know, and in 2 years, I don't think he'll be either. So
he's a very good player, but they overpaid for him in the first place to get him in there because it was part of the package deal. You know, he's a very good player.
Yeah, but at the time, Bosh was around. Bosh was as good as he can get without being a max player. You know, he was as close as you can be to being a max player at the time. You know, don't forget, this is a guy who was averaging 25 and 10 in Toronto. You know, he hasn't put up. You know, he's in a different system now, and you know, he doesn't put up those kind of numbers anymore. You know, and I think he's more, you know, he's obviously a third option, and you know, you don't pay a guy a max deal for a third option.
Right.
You know, it just doesn't happen.
Unless you're already locked into it and you're stuck.
Yeah. So I believe Bosh and Wade will both opt in because, like I said, I just can't see Wade opting out of, you know, $20 million a year, and same with Chris Bosh. It just doesn't seem likely that they would turn down because, you know, like I said, Bosh might be able to command $12 million a year in the open market in 2 years. You know, I don't know where his game will be in 2 years, but he's not going to be around $20 million. I can tell you that.
Right.
He just isn't that good. He's not a franchise game changer that's going to help, a mediocre team. He's not that last piece of the puzzle from a mediocre team going mediocre to championship caliber overnight. He's not that kind of guy like everybody thought he was, 3 years ago. Dwayne Wade, though, like I said, his body's aging. His injuries are taking a toll on him. He's clearly not the same player he was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and it's showing this season. But he still is an elite player. He's still a top 5 player in the NBA, in my opinion. But I just don't see it being there within 2 years. He's declining fast. He's got an old body. He takes a lot of punishment. His game's out. He likes to try. He draws a lot of blocking fouls, and he leans into the players. He just he plays a really hard style of basketball.
Well, you mentioned a second ago, and we'll once again, just like the Cleveland Browns and all their new hires, we'll see how it plays out. A lot of people are talking about it with LeBron hit, youngest player to hit 20,000 points. That's fine. Where does he stack up all time? Okay, fine. And will he come back to Cleveland to repair his image? Okay, I get why that's coming up. But you mentioned something a second ago, and I think it's a good transition. You said, look, you're just connecting the dots. You feel like a detective. You're getting all the pieces, the clues, the information out there, and you're saying, well, if I had to make an educated guess, if I were a gambling man, as some people say, including myself, you're just putting the puzzle pieces together to try to get the big picture.
You're never really sure, until the guy confesses to the crime.
Perfect.
And that's where you're looking at with LeBron. Is basically you're waiting for LeBron to answer a question, but it's like I said, it's just a fun game to play. But he's still 18 months away. He still has a season and a half left of basketball with the Miami Heat. He has another 120 games left with them. Well, that's regular season games.
Well,
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Is the Heat? They're about to be buried in the luxury tax this year. I believe it's $45 million. They're going to be, and the numbers going to be astronomical the following season. So that's another reason. If I were the Heat now, I'd take this as a championship run this year. If you win it, so be it. I would explore trading Chris Bosh in the offseason or someone, or even LeBron to try to get pieces in there to get under the luxury tax and try to fill it with young talent.
Well, what you had said, piecing together like a detective trying to solve a crime. Let's transition away from this for a second, because I will spend the rest of my life trying to earn back trust and apologize to people, says Lance Armstrong, speaking with Oprah Winfrey in an interview that aired Thursday night. This was a lot of people trying to play investigator detective with Lance Armstrong for a long time now, and finally it comes out. I guess to most people it's no surprise. He's a dirty doper.
They had positive tests, but there were still people who believed him. I know as of a couple months, people are still going, okay, the guy's tested positive. I still believe him though. He's had nothing. He's given me no reason to doubt him at this point. And then he goes, he just looks so cynical and so, like he just didn't care. It was like, I was gonna, I watched the highlights on SportsCenter. I DVR'd. I was scouting the other night, when the interview came on, so I couldn't watch it, so I DVR'd it. And, I saw the highlights on SportsCenter. I go, I don't want to watch this guy. I hate this guy. It's the last thing in my mind I really care to watch Lance Armstrong, sit there and tell his story. I just don't care. I got to watch the 5 minutes on SportsCenter about it. That's all I cared about. He admitted to it. That was all I cared about. Well,
and I will say a few months ago we did a show, and I think one of the something along the title of it being a witch hunt. And I kind of drew the parallels to politics and the witch hunts that, you go after somebody regardless of information and costs and rationality. And I said at the time, I believe, I'll have to go back to the videotape, correct me if I'm wrong, but, I said, look, I'm not saying I'm certain that Lance Armstrong didn't do it, but until you get the information that you need to actually prove it, come on now. Okay, now we have the information to prove it. Now all the pieces have shaken out. The results are there. The confession is there. Is it a full and honest confession? Some people are saying that he's only admitted to some things because of the statute of limitations when he was under investigation and went under oath and gave depositions and gave his statements, and he may have crossed the line legally, and there's all these unanswered questions. I don't know, but it's kind of, I don't know. I mean, it's just a totally lame story, or it's still a guy that went out and kicked a lot of ass, but he was cheating to do it. It just struck me, one of the things he said, he was talking about cheating, saying, he said that he looked up the definition of the word cheating, and it was about gaining an unfair advantage. And he said, yeah, I even looked it up because I looked around me and everybody else had an unfair advantage, and I wanted to compete. So yes, I did it, but I don't consider it cheating. I get what he's saying. He's pulling that Bill Clinton legal.
But I mean, as long as
us.
you break the rules, it doesn't matter if he was still cheating. And that's why I think the whole biking sport is a joke. Everybody cheats. It's just the stupid sport that no one cares about anymore. Because I love riding bikes, but I will never sit there and watch biking on TV.
Well, that was my favorite pastime growing up. You'd call your friends, "Hey, want to go ride bikes?" And you just ride bikes around town.
I love doing it. When I was younger, I absolutely loved doing it. I remember still when I was young, biking over to Beechwood Place in Cleveland. I remember going on a 5 to 6 mile bike ride, going to Beechwood Place and then going back. And I remember getting to tell all my friends, like, I biked to Beechwood Place with my mom this morning. We went at 7 in the morning, And I just remember, and all my friends were so impressed, like, wow, you went on a 5 to 6 mile bike ride, when I was like 8, 9 years old.
Uh-huh.
And, I love biking, but like I said, I'm not going to sit there and watch it on TV. I'm not going to go buy Lance Armstrong's, aerodynamic helmet to gain more speed.
Shave your arm hair.
I'm not going to go do that. I went on a bike trip in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts, on a 2-week bike trip. I did that when I was in 9th grade over the summertime. I love biking. I think it's great, but like I said, I just don't care for it anymore. I just don't care for it as a, sport to like look up to these guys as role models because they're all cheaters anyways. They ruin the sport.
So then you're saying, Zach, in front of our national audience, that you did not take banned testosterone or blood transfusions as a 9-year-old when you went to Beechwood Place on your bike.
I didn't start doing it until I was about 14.
Oh, okay. That's when you were biking all the way to the West Side Market or something. I don't know. I'm just goofing around. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's a sad story. I don't know. Is it a lame story, a sad story, a non-story, or just another chapter of cheating and competitiveness and getting wrapped up in the ego of trying to be the best? I mean, how do we put a ribbon on this? How do we wrap this up? Because, I hardly cared in the first place. Biking is a sport, really. I get it, but I don't care. Kind of like soccer. It's a fine sport, I'm sure, but I just don't care. I don't really root for teams.
Well,
I don't care.
It's an obscure sport.
It's
like
niche.
Like they joked about it in Dodgeball, ESPN HBO show. It's like, when they made the joke about it in Dodgeball when Lance Armstrong, it's an obscure sport. Like I said, it's just not a sport I care to watch on TV.
So how do we wrap it up? Just who cares? Just the main headline here is who cares?
Don't look up to Lance Armstrong as a hero. The guy's clearly not. He sit there duped millions and millions of people, but it is what it is. It happened, and it's over with now. You don't have to worry about it. He's irrelevant now.
Okay. Well,
I'm definitely more intrigued, and I'll tell you this right now, by the Manti Te'o story.
Yes. Let's go from irrelevant to non-existent. Let me just hit this from ESPN. Manti Te'o. By the way, if you don't know what's going on, I'm sorry you've been living under a rock, but that's all right. That's why we do our thing here. Manti Te'o. Let me just go from here. He denied being a part of a hoax involving a relationship with a person online whom he considered his girlfriend during an interview with ESPN's Jeremy Schaap on Friday night, but did say he, quote, tailored, end quote, his stories so people would think he met her before she passed away. No, never, Te'o said during the 2.5-hour interview. Man, that sounds like an interrogation. I wasn't faking it. I wasn't part of this. Te'o said he didn't know for sure that Lene Kekua never existed until Wednesday, when Ronaya Tuiasosopo called Te'o and admitted he was behind the hoax. Te'o said he received a Twitter direct message from Tuiasosopo where he said that he was the perpetrator along with another man and a woman. He then talked with Tuiasosopo on the phone Wednesday. 2 guys and a girl are responsible for the whole thing, Te'o said. Asked who they are, he said, I don't know. According to Ronaya's one. So, to just give the highlights here, the headline reads, Manti Te'o's dead girlfriend didn't exist. Now, my number one.
Deadspin the other day. I was sitting there on Twitter. I can tell you exactly.
I couldn't make sense of it.
I was sitting on Twitter and I was like, what? And I was like, you know what? I'll pull up the story. I'll read a little bit of it, and then I was like, you know what? My friend's in town from Chicago. Went to high school with the kid back in Cleveland. I haven't seen him in a while, and so he's like, let's go to lunch. So I was like, definitely. So I was like. So it meets me in Hollywood. I got the story up on my phone. We're driving to lunch. We're having lunch over at 800 degrees in Westwood, and I'm sitting there like, he's like talking. I was like, oh, hold on. I was like, I'm so intrigued by this story. I'm reading this right now. He goes, what is it? I go, Manti Te'o's girlfriend wasn't real. He's like, the one with leukemia. And I was like, yeah. He goes, send me the story right now. So I sent him the story. Sitting there at lunch trying to catch up. Old friends. I haven't seen him in a year. And we're both sitting there on our phones reading the Manti Te'o story. And I'm sitting there reading this thing just going, you have to be kidding me. I was like, I've never seen anything like this before. And then all of a sudden, all this news comes out, and my first thought was just confused. And a friend called me up, and he goes, do you want to hear my philosophy on the whole thing? And I said, yeah, sure. I said, let's hear it. And he goes, Manti Te'o's gay. And I said, keep talking. So he explained the situation. I added a little more to it. And, I'm thinking to myself, this is a star football player in the #1 team in the country. He could get any girl he wants on a campus. I witnessed it. I went to the University of Arizona. I used to see Rob Gronkowski. He would show up at my parties, my friends' parties, all the time. Rob Gronkowski would never leave a party without a girl. He was the big man on campus. He'd get any girl he wanted to, and he always did. Manti Te'o could too. Why make up a fake girlfriend that you haven't seen and getting a fake relationship with a girl you haven't seen, unless it's a cover-up? I'm not saying he is gay, because I'm not saying it, but it makes a lot of sense.
Well, and if there's if that story comes out, I'm sure people are going to be calling him Manti-Gayo and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know. I've already started calling him that.
Yeah, but you know what? When you get this reminds me of Benghazi. Allow me to just go off on this side tangent. I'll get right back on the road here for a second. But with Benghazi, 4 Americans were killed, including the ambassador Chris Stevens. Then for 2 weeks, including in front of the United Nations, our President Barack Obama is out there telling people it's because of this YouTube video. See, here's what happened, guys. A YouTube video got people so angry. By the way, nobody saw the video. But the video that nobody saw got people so angry because it insulted their prophet that they had to attack, and it was a spontaneous uprising, and it was a burst of violence because they were so angry that someone would insult the prophet of Islam. And then 2 weeks later, no, that never happened. Well, wait a minute. In the absence of still, to this day, not knowing what happened in Benghazi, every single crazy, ridiculous theory, conspiracy theory, rumor, and anything you can imagine fills that space. In the absence of knowing what's going on, you have theories. You have the gay theory. You have Manti Te'o was now I'm back on the road again. Manti Te'o was drumming this up for publicity, for sympathy, to become one of the first defensive players to win the Heisman in a very long time. Maybe it was a motivating tool. Maybe some of the people on his team that said he loved the attention and being on TV, and he'd point out, hey, I'm on TV, hey, I'm on TV. Maybe he got wrapped up in it. Maybe he was the victim of a hoax. Maybe he was kind of involved in it, and maybe it got out of hand. Maybe he didn't know what was going on, and then he did know what was going on, and then he tried to just kind of slip it away and wrap it up, and okay, gosh, I can't believe that happened, and then it got even worse when the death of the person that didn't exist actually occurred. In the absence of knowing the truth, we have every single theory out there. So I don't know if I necessarily believe this 2.5-hour interview of what he's saying, that he had no knowledge, he was just completely gullible, he was I've never called somebody fully.
If your girlfriend's sitting on her deathbed, don't you think you're going to fly out and see her?
Yeah, why wouldn't you go see her? You know that you're getting $20 million in the NFL draft in a couple weeks. You can put $500, $1,000, $1,500 on a credit card.
I know if my girlfriend was dying, I would fly anywhere in the world to see her. If she was dying,
yeah,
I would.
That's a fair point. That's a good point. Yeah.
It's not even a question. Even if they tell you, we don't want you to see her in this state, I would go, you know what, it doesn't matter to me. I'm going to go there and surprise her. I want to see her. And then it comes up with this whole BS story about how the casket was closed at 9 a.m., how he had white flowers delivered and they were placed on the casket. Where is that coming from? I mean, that's sitting there. That's just a lie.
Well, okay. Let me pause on that. Where did the YouTube video come from? Why were people, where in the world did this story that there was a YouTube video that got people angry and it led to this spontaneous protest, which led to the violence, which led to the deaths of 4 Americans? Where did the fake YouTube story come from? Who's the first person that said this? And why was it so specific? What are they trying to cover up? How much worse is the real story that you're willing to lie about all these irrelevant, insignificant, unrelated things to get us distracted from it? It's a good point that you bring up. The specificness of the lies. Well, I don't know.
That's what doesn't make sense. He was obviously in on this hoax some way or another. Some way or another, he was involved.
Now, it is possible. It is possible that he was duped in the beginning, found out somewhere in the middle.
Stupid. I mean, you look at this kid right there, he's stupid or he's a liar. It's one of the two. And if he's stupid, then this kid's one of the dumbest kids on the face of the earth. I mean, I would know. I mean, you have a girlfriend, you've never FaceTimed with her or Skyped with her. You know, this day and age, every single person, you know, in America has a smartphone or a computer.
I will say,
You know,
that in the history of my sometimes flawed relationships with significant others, I have never referred to someone as my girlfriend that wasn't my girlfriend. Now, maybe at some point we have drifted apart, and maybe things have changed, and maybe I wasn't aware until it was later. But I've never referred to a girlfriend that I had never met, that I had never seen or FaceTimed with or Skyped with, that I've never hung out with. That's not a girlfriend, that's a friend. That's, yeah, I know this. There's this person, and we connected on, you know, instant messenger through Twitter, and, you know, we shoot the S from time to time back and forth. We chit-chat. Yeah, she's super cute, but yeah, she's a friend, I guess. I don't know. She's not my girlfriend. I've never hugged her. I've never kissed her. It's not my girlfriend, but she's a friend of mine that's a girl. How does this turn into this is my girlfriend? And telling the father, I met this girl, and we're dating for this long time, and now she has leukemia, and all these specifics. You wonder what is really happening here, because I'm not buying the cover story, just like I'm not buying the Benghazi cover story.
Exactly. Well, I can't buy the Manti Te'o cover story until he comes out and fully speaks on the record, on TV, in an interview where people are allowed to ask him questions and grill him on the spot. Because you'll know if he's making up answers there on the spot. You know, I don't like the closed-door interview for 2.5 hours, and then ESPN comes out and Jeremy Schaap talks for 4 minutes. You know, what the hell did you talk about in a 2.5-hour interview where you only have 4 minutes of, 4 minutes of information to talk about? You know, at least, you know, I would have questions for, you know, I just don't understand how you Skype, FaceTime. The girl even asks you for your checking account number, apparently. You know, you don't give it to her. You know, you think something's up? You know,
people still fall for the Nigerian king. But people still fall for the Nigerian king scam where they have money but they need you to cash it and they'll give you a deposit. People still fall for these classic early to mid 90s internet email scams where they give out information, they think there's a payday at the end, or they just get duped. People do stupid things. People do dumb things, I guess. Right?
Yeah, I mean, people do, but at the same time, you know, you have to sit there and wonder and go, you know, what is wrong with these people? You know, I mean, I understand the old women getting duped in these schemes. I completely understand. You know, from our parents' generation, I completely understand. Because they're not completely with the times. But for someone who's grown up in the technology age like us, that's in their 20s or 30s, you know, this should never, ever happen. You know, you have to be smart enough not to be scammed. It's so mystifying how this guy was being able to be duped so easily. You know, I mean, I could have been the guy's girlfriend. I could call with a voice changer and the Bluff My Call app and called. You know, how hard is it? You know, trace a phone number. You can see where it's traced. You buy a background check online for $10. You know, this isn't rocket science here. This isn't. You know, this isn't tough. You know, I can tell you, Manti Te'o, if he was really duped, would make the worst detective on the face of the earth. You know, it's almost comical how stupid he is.
Well, here's a couple of comments on ESPN.com. I wouldn't hold it against him if he lied after finding out, because who wants to admit they got played, especially the month before a championship game? Okay, in theory, I can understand that. Okay, in theory, if that's how it happened, and I'm not convinced that's the case. Here's another comment. He may as well admit that he was a part of it. Otherwise, he looks like a combination of the most gullible and the most socially inept person to walk the earth. And that's kind of what you were saying, right? Here's two more real quick ones. Love of my life, can't wait until he explains that one. Well, that does it. I totally believe him now. Very sarcastic. Well, that does it. I totally believe him now.
I don't know if you saw a couple of my tweets from last night, but if you look, I had a couple good ones last night, and I had one this morning.
By the way, his Twitter feed, if you're not following Zak Baris, it's at @ZBaris. That's ZBARS on Twitter. Go ahead.
You know, I had a good one last night. Manti Te'o had a picture up last night. If you run over the comment on it, it was actually pretty funny. It was I don't know if you've seen it yet, but I did it pretty late last night, and then. I went catfishing last night, so But, it was just like
the catfishing. Well, who was it? Javon Clowney? What's that guy? That linebacker. He said, "I got 90." Manti Te'o has 99 problems, but a fake girlfriend ain't one, or something. Yes,
yeah,
something like that. And that was retweeted tens of thousands of times. And it's
but a bitch ain't one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the whole situation is just it's sad that because let's face it, if the guy was in on it, he has mental issues. He has psychological issues that he needs to deal with, because this is not normal behavior. And if he's gullible enough, he really has some life lessons he needs to wake up to if he's going to go to the NFL. So either way, the kid needs help.
Why you would formulate a relationship on Twitter, through Twitter anyways, with someone you've never met, when there are plenty, there's thousands of girls at Notre Dame and the college that's near, I forgot the women's college that's nearby, right over there in South Bend. But there are thousands of girls willing to throw themselves at you. You're the star linebacker of the number one team in the country. You're the face of that team. When someone said, over the past couple of years, Notre Dame, the first name to come to mind was always Manti Te'o. It wasn't Jimmy Clausen. It wasn't, it was no one else. It was Manti Te'o. First name you thought about when you heard anyone on that team. And he could, like I said, he could have had any girl he wanted to. Yeah, and so and that's what's so confusing, because to be able to develop a relationship on Twitter, get duped so badly, and that's what makes you think it's just there's no way this kid can be that stupid. He had to be in on it. Talking to this girl, and then on December 6th, why wasn't this investigation brought to, or why how did Notre Dame now he's starting to say something which is contradicting to what Notre Dame's athletic director said. So it just makes you wonder, the truth will probably come out in this whole case. But it's just so baffling. There's so many words to just describe this. It's just ultimate confusion as to what went on. I'm sitting here, I am like I said, I've never been so fascinated with a story in my life, because
one of the weirdest headlines I've ever read, and I used to work in school newspapers back in college. I've been studying journalism as my minor. I'm constantly on Twitter finding news stories. Manti Te'o's dead girlfriend didn't exist is one of the weirdest headlines I've ever read.
It's probably the weirdest headline I've ever read. And I have to say,
Top
I
10.
love Deadspin. I had the opportunity a few years ago, actually, when Will Leach, who started Deadspin, I met Will Leach actually poolside over at the MGM when I was 21 years old. This had to be, 3.5.
Had to be 3.5. You still with us, Zach? Had to be 3.5. So either his phone battery died. Let's try him again. This happens from time to time. What it is.
Hello?
MGM about 3.5 years ago.
Yeah, so I was at the MGM 3.5 years ago, and I had the opportunity. I met Will Leach. My friend was a huge fan, and ever since I've always read Deadspin and stuff. But I love that Deadspin always, they always investigate, and they always have such great reports on such obscure sports stories, and that's what I love. It's something that you would never find on an ESPN or anything, but Deadspin always reports. They always have these fascinating stories that just feel like, okay, I would never care about this, but then you go to read it and you're just like, wow, this is an awesome story. And that's what I love about Deadspin. I've been following him, and I'm glad they were able to break the Manti Te'o story. This is just so fascinating, and it's just like you said, it's so original. You've never seen a story like this ever. With such a big-time athlete faking a girlfriend. It almost makes me think of the Law and Order SVU episode, where they have all these, former athletes, these football players, and, Ice-T finds out they're on the down low. I mean, actually, and it's just like, they have fake coverage. The guy goes, the guy says in the show that he has relationships with women, and then, obviously you can, piece together the rest. But it's just like, you wonder what's the point of making up a fake girlfriend when you have the opportunity to have any girl you want to.
Well, I'm just checking this out on Twitter here from 92.3 The Fan out of Cleveland. Here's the headline here. It says 18 human heads found at Chicago's O'Hare Airport.
But those weren't mafia heads. They were used for research. And
right. And then it continues. No foul play. They're probably medical specimens. So you can find really strange headlines, but you figure out what was really going on. Oh, okay. Yes. Here's what happened.
I mean, at first I was like, well, it must be like a mafia crime.
Right.
reading that, and then like you get to it and you're just like, oh, it's just for medical, they were medical research.
But days and days later, with Benghazi, I still have no idea what happened there. And with Manti Te'o's dead girlfriend didn't exist. I still can't understand what we're getting at here. It's he was either involved in it or he's not. He has mental issues and he craves media attention and he's a narcissist and he doesn't care about what happens to people's emotions or feelings. He just cares about nothing but himself. Or he's the most trusting, innocent person ever and he legitimately he wasn't looking for sexual relationships and really grew to love this person who was faking it. Either way, the kid needs some help. He needs some help, and I want to make sure that is one of the main components here. Either he's a jerk or he's foolish.
If I had to get a take on it, what I would say is probably what happened is he probably got into a relationship with this woman over the phone. Probably, I don't know what his social life was like at Notre Dame, whether he was going out with girls and stuff. I have no clue, but my guess is that he basically, got. My thoughts is that he probably got duped. He's probably had a really big time emotional connection with this girl over the phone. And then, it turns out, she died and he made it, and like I said, he probably embellished it for the publicity, to say it was more than it was, because he was embarrassed that, he had probably never met the girl, that was the love of his life.
Maybe.
Never even seen her. I mean,
but then why not just say that?
She could have been a trucker named, she could have been you,
A trucker named Brian. Hello.
Exactly. You could have been the love of Manti Te'o's life. And so that's why I sit here and wondering, he was probably just so embarrassed he had to keep covering up and just got deeper and deeper in his story.
But then why not say it a few days later? Once it pops, the story's out, just say, look, I want to explain, this thing started small, it grew way out of hand.
I think it would have been a distraction of the team. There was so much that went down. And like you said, his dad embellished the story too by saying the girl had come to visit them multiple times.
I'm a young man. I'm a young man. This was a poor choice. Things really got out of hand, and then adding the whole leukemia and then dying thing. This was a way to kind of put it away so we could just end this and not continue. Or, then it got out of hand when she has leukemia and then she's dying. And this whole thing was just a horrible mistake that snowballed from one little bad decision to a horrible bad decision. I didn't intend to hurt anybody. I didn't legitimately go out and physically hurt anybody with this. It was a lapse in judgment. I mean, why am I not hearing any of this? Is it still pride and ego and embarrassment?
Obviously CAA is covering him up, avoid him talking to the public because it could affect his draft stock considerably. Don't forget before the championship game, this guy was considered a top 5 pick. I still thought it was crazy for a middle linebacker to ever be picked in the top 5. But you can find a good one in the second or third round. A lot of good middle linebackers are. So I thought it was crazy to begin with. And then he had such a poor national championship game. His stock's already falling. He's now in that 15 to 20 range, projected, and this comes out. It's just a bombshell. You're looking at millions and millions of dollars to be lost here. So CAA is doing the right thing by covering him up. But at the same time, all these questions are sitting there lingering, going, we want, teams are gonna find out the story when they're interviewing him in the combine. The guy's gonna have to talk.
Well, look, he's either been the victim of a horrible hoax and he's horribly embarrassed, extremely gullible, foolish, and not world wise, and he needs some help getting through this, or he screwed up, and the best thing would be to apologize.
Yeah, that's his best thing. Admit he was duped, or just tell the truth now. He's still a talented player. But all I can tell you is this kid better just hope he's not drafted by the New York Jets or the New York Giants, to get in that New York media circus. If he wants to be with the team, go to the Miami Dolphins.
Cowboys or the Raiders? Cowboys or Raiders? That's what I'm thinking.
Just where the media you need to go. Well, the Cowboys, it wouldn't be a good fit.
No, but they accept felons on their team, just like the Raiders.
You need to go to a team that doesn't get a lot of national media attention, or where they have ruthless local media reporters. You have to, in New York would just be a death sentence for the kid, because if the answers don't come out, the New York media is going to get it out of him. And if he starts fabricating more stories, he's just going to get in deeper and deeper. So what he needs to do is just come out now. He needs to come out now.
Take a cue, and you don't mean coming out of the closet. You mean just whatever the actual story is. Just get down to the dirty of it, because Lance Armstrong lied for what, a decade, 15 years, a long time. And it's like just wrap this up. Raise your hand. My bad. If I had the chance to do this again, trust me, I wouldn't start this snowball.
I can tell you right now, no potential endorser is going to sign Manti Te'o to an endorsement deal right now until they find out what happened.
Oh, unless they use some humor. Unless they use some humor for a product that isn't there, but it is there. Kind of like LifeLock or something like, it's not there, but it's there to protect. I don't know, something like that. Or ADT, it's there even when you're not there.
I mean, the only thing is we found is, the only thing we've come to realize is that Manti Te'o's girlfriend is less real than Patrick Swayze and Ghost. And, I just love the jokes that come out of it. Like you said, some of them are hilarious.
This is true, but I'm bringing it back. I've been following the Junior Seau thing, and I've been and I have a psychology degree, and I'm just saying, either way, the kid needs some help right now. He needs to get his mental health sorted out, because either he made a horrible mistake and it's cost him a bunch of money and he's going to be depressed and he's going to be lonely, or he's ridiculously trusting and gullible and he's feeling complete. The kid needs help. That's my one concern. Whether he's a jerk, I almost called him something else, whether he's a complete jerk or just gullible, the kid needs some help right now. He needs to be talking this out, and I don't know that he's getting it, and I just, my hope is that he is getting some help right now. Whether he deserves it or not, whether this is intended or not, whether it's karma coming back or not, I don't know, but he does need some help. He needs he needs some professionals around him to kind of evaluate this. So I don't know. I'm gonna reserve my judgment a little bit, kind of like I did with Lance Armstrong as late as 6 months ago or a few months ago in a recent show. Let's wait and see how it all plays out. But yeah, the jokes some of them have been hilarious. I've been laughing at them, admittedly. But at the end of the day, this is a human, and he is. He's gonna be suffering. He's hurting right now, either self-inflicted or.
Oh yeah,
otherwise.
Yeah. He's hurting right now, but it's just like on December 8th when after he found out the whole thing was a hoax, and he sits there on December 8th and talking about how he's lost people to cancer, how he lost his girlfriend to cancer. He should have just, at the time he should have just said, he goes, I'd rather not address that right now. Is what he should have
that
said.
Could have been exactly.
Because if he would have just said, I'd rather not address, he's not lying.
Right,
He's still not
exactly.
The hoax yet.
Exactly.
At the same time, he just goes, I'm not comfortable talking about that right
and
now.
I've never called someone a girlfriend who I've never hugged. So just this story from the beginning doesn't smell right to me at all. We'll see how it all plays out. Who knows? He might be wearing a Browns uniform next year for all I know. So
I doubt that one, but
hey, who knows, buddy?
He's not a top 6 pick.
We were saying that we need linebackers. I'm saying 3rd round, or trading a 3rd rounder and a 7th rounder to move up into the late
If he
second.
falls to the 3rd round, go there and grab him.
That's what I'm saying.
Nice, beautiful house with their fake kids.
Yeah, there's a joke about glass houses if there's you can't see the walls. Anyway, yeah, look, we'll see how it all plays out. It's a fascinating story. By this time next week, we might have a lot more, but unfortunately, what we don't have any more of is time for today's program, Zach. So,
well, thank you again for having me on. I appreciate it as always, and I look forward to being on in the near future.
Yeah, it's always fun, buddy. Once again, this is Zak Baris. Check him out on Twitter, Z Baris. That's ZBARIS. Lifelong Cleveland sports fan and NBA scout. So definitely check out his tweets. Check out his 90210 tweet about the fake drug. You'll know what I'm talking about. Check out his Twitter feed. You'll see what it is. And Zach, have a good weekend, sir, and I'll be talking with you again soon, all right?
All right, have a good one.
Take care. All right, bye. Yep, Zak Baris, good times, everybody. Yeah, Brandon Odell wanted to be a part of the program today for Strictly Browns because all of the fascinating moves with the Cleveland Browns going on, it just didn't work out. Sometimes things don't work out in, well, micro, macro, time, relationships, money, investments, ventures. Sometimes things just don't work out, and for Brandon today was just a timing issue. But we certainly hope that the Cleveland Browns under new management with Jimmy Haslam that it's going to work out. Look, Lance Armstrong. He's a human being at the end of the day. He liked cycling. He liked winning. I don't know. Is he? Is he responsible for 18 severed heads at Chicago O'Hare Airport? Nah. Well, unless he is. I don't think that's the case. Is he a liar? Is he a cheater? Okay. Is he a horrible human being? I can't go there. Manti Te'o? I don't know. I don't know. Let's see how this story plays out, because I'm just not quite buying it, just like I'm not buying Benghazi. I still don't know what happened in Benghazi. That happened on September 11th. October, November, December, January. 4 months in. I still don't even know what happened there. JFK, Roswell. Do we really know what happened to all these things? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But really, in LeBron James. Do I even have it in my soul? Do I even have the energy to devote anger to people that have disappointed me anymore? You know, I mean, what are you going to do? Someone disappoints you. You really have no other options but to move on. Or you can be angry, and that doesn't do anything. I've said it 100 times. Maya Angelou talking to Dave Chappelle on Sundance Channel. What was the name? Iconoclasts. And Dave Chappelle asked about the civil rights movement and people being murdered. Aren't you angry, Maya Angelou? And she said, David, I can't be angry. I'm not happy about what happened, and I'll never forget. But I can't hold on to anger, David, because anger is like a cancer. It does nothing to the object I'm angry at. It just devours me. So, you know, I'm trying to turn a new leaf here, kind of let go of some of this LeBron James frustration. I've been waiting for a championship my whole life, 33 years old, waiting for the Indians, Cavs, or Browns to win one. Never won one. We were really close. I mean, that is really let down. You know, but if a lot of people get let down. A lot of people are lied to. A lot of people are disappointed. So what? So what are you going to do? You know, deal with tomorrow. Don't worry about the rearview mirror. Focus on the windshield. Look forward. You know, and these are human beings they're human beings. Narcissistic? LeBron James, Lance Armstrong, Manti Te'o? Ooh, sounds like it might apply. Narcissistic. Yeah, you know, pretend. Whatever. I'm just saying, either way, Manti Te'o. Forget LeBron and Lance Armstrong for a second, but Manti Te'o, I hope he's getting some mental health help. Either because he's ridiculously gullible and he's been hurt beyond belief, or he was part of something really just kind of despicable and self-serving and foolish. Dude needs some help. He's still a young kid. I'm hoping that he gets that help that he needs. I really do. I'm going to leave it with that. My name's Brian Engelman. Thank you for listening to both Strictly Browns and the Unhappy Hour here on thenewamericanmedia.com. Stay tuned if you're listening live, or look for it posted on our Facebook account. Search The New American Media, or on Twitter at American_media_, or on our YouTube page, youtube.com/The New American Media, because we're going to bring in Blake Wally, Blake the Eccentric. We're going to talk about our top news story extravaganza, and we're going to kind of go around the world and find the most interesting stories of the week and get you caught up to speed over there on Agree to Disagree. Signing out from Los Angeles, California, I'm Brian Engelman on thenewamericanmedia.com. I really appreciate your support. It's been a great ride. More to come.
You are listening to the New American Media.